What's happening, everyone? Welcome to this episode of Corner Table Talk, Food Plus Drink Plus Culture. Today, I am so honored to have a chance to speak with Jamila Robinson. Jamila is the editor and chief of Bon Appetit and Epicurious. She leads an award-winning team that shapes the culinary world and the way global audiences think about food through ambitious recipes and storytelling about culture, cooking, and restaurants. Robinson serves as the North American East Academy Chair for the world's 50 best restaurants, selecting voting panel. That's got to be a tough selection process. You eat your way through 50 restaurants, but we'll come back to that. Recognized as one of the most influential people in food media, Robinson was most recently the assistant managing editor for food and culture at the Philadelphia Inquirer, where she led the digital transformation of its food and dining coverage and won an Emmy Award for Wildest Dreams, a multi-platform project on the Black experience. Robinson has also held senior leadership roles at Atlantic Media and the USA Today Network, where she directed strategy across dozens of media brands. Jamila, welcome to Corner Table Talk. It's so nice
Oh,
to see you and nice to have you here.
thank you. It is so nice to be here. Great to see you as well. I'm really thrilled to talk about restaurants and culture with you. So I'm excited to be here.
You are
Thank you.
so young. You've had quite a career. You've been busy.
Am I young? I've been busy, but I have had a great long career. I mean, I really do consider myself a veteran journalist who has worked across a number of media outlets, but I am still, a J school student at heart, a storyteller and truth seeker. Whether that's about restaurants or that's about life, so I'm very. It's been a long career, but almost 2 years here at Bon Appetit. So
Mhm.
the time goes very fast.
Well, let's talk. Your obvious journalism skills aside, I know you have a reputation also as a talented baker. Anna Wintour praised your kitchen skills. What's something you made recently that you can share with us?
Oh my gosh, I do love to cook. I really do enjoy eating. We have at Bon Appetit, we have something called the Bake Club, and it is for serious, ambitious bakers. And I love baking. And so we have a pistachio cake. Was
Mm.
our Bake Club recipe for March? This beautiful bundt cake, and I got all the stuff out to make the bundt cake, this pistachio cake. I got the eggs out and I got the stuff in the mixer, and just out of rote memory, I made a pound cake. I was supposed to make this pistachio cake, but just out of force
That
of habit, I
was
made a
to be
pound cake.
denied.
It's my granny pound cake, and I said, "Oh gosh, I made the wrong cake. I'm not following this recipe at all." So I just end up making, like, a very delicious lemon pound cake that we all want to eat on Sundays anyway. So
Oh,
still time
absolutely.
for the pistachio cake.
Its day will come. So, Jamila, congratulations on this issue, and to you and the staff at Bon Appetit. The art and design issues, it's really a collector's item. It's so stunning.
Thank
Talk
you.
about the intersection, if you will, of art, design, and food.
Oh, well, it's everything that we do. When we think about a plate is a piece of art. We eat with our eyes. And I even say in my editor's letter that humans from the moment of existence, we have always chronicled pictures of our food. And we have always been inspired or trying to show what we're eating and trying to make that connection. But artists are inspired by food. I like to say that, sure, Monet was painting water lilies, but he was also painting galettes and grapes. Van Gogh was painting potato peelers and along with the sunflowers. Chefs are often inspired by art. They're inspired by nature. Nature gives us some of the most beautiful things, and we keep trying to replicate that, whether that is on the plate, um, or on the canvas. And so I really wanted to explore the ways that food can be a muse. So we talked to fashion designers, we talked to painters, we talked to sculptors about what would they create if when food is their muse, and we came up with some of the most beautiful things. Art is such an inspiration for chefs. So we went to our test kitchen editors and said, "What would you make? Of all the pieces of art you see, which one do you want to cook?" And so they were able to take that as an inspiration. I think art and design, color is always a muse, and we are experiencing that all the time. Food is an art form that we all participate in, whether you are being very deliberate about that cake recipe or not. If you are trying to recreate your grandmother's recipe in some way, you are participating in an art form. And I think taking that idea and expanding that into what we can make that into if food is an art form we all participate in, how does that become journalism? How does that become storytelling? And so we wanted to look at all the ways that that food can be expressed in architecture, in color, in design, in the ways that we fabricate appliances, the ways that we and the colors we use to make our food. Those are all so inspiring. And that's was the nexus of the design issue.
Well, thank you. Let's start with the cover. I was just taken by the cover by artist Mateus Lorraine, I believe. Is that correct
Yeah,
pronunciation?
that's exactly
Yeah.
right.
Thank you.
And when we were thinking about this issue, we wanted it to be an opportunity for our creative team, which is led by Caroline Newton. We have this great team of photographers, art directors, designers, and the typically, they are the people who make our work look beautiful. They make our recipes look beautiful, but we wanted to give them a platform for making a beautiful issue that was really about the things that inspire them. So Caroline Newton, and our creative team, they looked for, um, illustrators all over the world and took pitches, and we just talked about what we would want to create, and we sent out a pitch memo to a number of artists worldwide and said, it sketch out some things. We looked at their styles of illustration and said, "Well, these are some ways that we could go." We asked for pitches, and Matthias sent us some designs that included some printmaking and texture that we thought was so beautiful because the way that we experience food can be so different. And our cover is a fork, knife, and spoon, but it is this gorgeous piece of art that we hope a lot of people will hang up.
Yeah, yeah. What a team. I mean, I would think that this particular what you just walked through had to be exciting for the team at Bon Appetit to have an opportunity to dig into this line and this subject matter.
We talk about art all the time. We talk about artists, we talk about sketching, we all doodle, "Oh, here's how the page is going to look like," or "Here's where I think the type should go," or "Here's where I would love to put this little flourish of parsley. This is how I would want to style a plate." And so we're participating in art all the time. We are creating art when we create a recipe. But if you step back and ask the staff, what are the things that you would want to cook if you were walking through a museum, which pieces of art would you cook? This was a great case of collaboration between the test kitchen, our editorial department, our visuals department. And this is a good way to show when you have cross departmental, cross cultural, diverse groups of people from different backgrounds doing different kinds of work, you will come up with something beautiful and you will come up with something new. It's not unlike a jam session where, we're going to
Mhm.
turn it to the drummer now to kick us off, and then all of you join in. It's a small group of extraordinarily talented people, and we really wanted to show off the talent of our visuals team and when they are in the lead, and then what kinds of work that our editorial and how the editorial department will step up to support the art department as well. So it's been a real joy to see the connections come forth. It was a real joy to watch the test kitchen be inspired by the visuals department,
Mm.
and to see the photography that came forth and the sculpture that came forth, and it's something that I think we will want to. It has given us a lot of learnings about how to work together,
Mm.
and then what other kinds of beautiful work we can create.
Yeah, for print media to accomplish all that you just described. I mean, I'm a jazz head, so and I love the timelessness of the old guys, the Coltrane's and the Miles. But for uh, print media to create what you just described, that's a unique challenge, I would think, in today's media with video imagery and the short attention span of everyone.
Well, most people encounter Bon Appetit and Epicurious now through video. That is
Hmm.
how they encounter our brands. But we do think that it's super important to go back and look at the old heads. We also
Hmm.
see, I mean, I'm also very inspired by music, very inspired by Miles Davis. And one of the things that he said was to play the notes that aren't there.
Right, right,
And
right.
I think for print media, we tend to play a lot of the notes that are already there.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important to look for the things that people can't see and to tap in the ways that when it's the holidays, a lot of food media magazines will put cookies on the cover.
We
Everybody's expecting to see holiday cookies. And because that's classic and that is it has been considered something that works. But, in our, holiday issue for 2023, we have this great image of coquito, the classic Caribbean cocktail. We decided to put that on the cover because, 1, it was a gorgeous image and it was beautiful and stunning, but it was also a moment for us to acknowledge people who may not have seen themselves on the cover. We know we're expected to have cookies. We're expected to have grilling in the summer. But what if we take that in a different direction and we put our grilled dishes inside banana leaf and we put that on the grill? It's a way for us to make our print products a premium
Mhm.
experience. Print is a luxury. And for us to have something that a magazine that we want to print out, that we want to share, that people want to collect and they want to see on their desks or they want to share with other people, we want to create that kind of experience for us. And yes, there are challenges in the print media landscape, but I think we have done a great job of thinking about what are the experiences that we want people to have? What do we want people to share? And capturing that into a print experience that sits alongside our video shows like On the Line and Street Eats that have a huge audience, but we also want to bring them back to our print experience as well.
Well, Jamila, you had me at play the notes that aren't there. I I can't believe you threw a Miles Davis quote at me, and it was perfect. That's great. Thank you. I'm a restaurateur. I have been my entire life, and of course, I love food. I admire chefs. But I've been intrigued by restaurant design since the very first place that I opened. I was very fortunate to work with a gentleman who was really an artist, and the process of creating the place was just my favorite part. That operating, that's
Yeah.
fun too, but it's a little harder. But I enjoyed the creative process and developing a look and a feel that respects the space, but also the neighborhood. Where is this
Yes.
restaurant located? What are you trying to say? What's the story behind it? So naturally, for me to discover Post Company, which is one of the featured firms in this issue, that just really caught my attention. I absolutely love their work. How'd you discover them?
Oh my gosh, that was discovered by our editors, Kate Casson, and who, our restaurant editor and our team, we spend a lot of time scouting restaurants all year for our Best New Restaurants feature, which comes in the fall. But as we are finding restaurants that we love, there are some common threads. Oh, when you look at chefs, oh, this person may have come out of Marcus Samuelson's kitchen. This person may have come out of Daniel Boulud's kitchen. And so you start to see some through lines. And we were starting to see some through lines about restaurants as well. These are restaurants that we feel good in, we feel comfortable in. The lighting
Mhm.
is beautiful. We can just sit back if we want to pick up the bowl and snuggle with it. And we started to see, and so just as we track chefs um, who may be emerging, we are also tracking the design as well. We are tracking the experience that we create, and we found that the Post Company was really creating some restaurants that had these common threads of beautiful design, lots of texture, gorgeous lighting, made the food look beautiful, and made you forget that you were in a restaurant and you started to feel as if you were in someone's home.
Mhm.
And that for me is a testament of a great restaurant, that when you feel as if you are being invited into someone's living room or just into someone's kitchen and you are the guest. And I think we found that this company in particular had found a playbook for creating a restaurant that had that sense of comfort, that had that sense of joy, that and was exemplifying why we liked being in restaurants.
Yeah, you kind of answered this, but I want to just dig a little bit deeper into that because, if not carefully calibrated, the balance can be off, right? A place we've all been in places where the design was a little bit too fussy or a little bit too over the top or didn't quite connect with the concept or the neighborhood. So how do you see design weaving into the fabric of the food and the experience in a restaurant?
Well, I think photography social media plays a huge part of this. Is it something that is going to look beautiful in a photo? So when the it does the does the lighting reflect the food? I'm a dark-skinned Black woman. Can I take a picture in this restaurant without a flash and show up?
Mm,
I think design has to make sure that the tables are close enough for me to have a conversation with my diner, with my companion, but I'm not necessarily hearing the same person next to me. So that means you're like the space, how I move in and out of the restaurant, how the staff comes and presents the plates. Do I have to back up and bend down and
right,
lean over,
right.
or is it an easy way for the food to come from the past to the table? Can I see what's happening in the kitchen? Is there a scene that you're setting for me? All of those things play into the experience. If you are uncomfortable anywhere, we've all sat in a restaurant where the chairs, like the back is out of the chair,
Mhm,
or you're on a stool that's too high with no back.
mhm,
Comfort, making sure your guests are comfortable, and then, color and aesthetics. Do all the patterns make sense, or are
mhm.
they so fussy that I'm getting vertigo? Or and down to going to the restroom, being able to navigate the restroom. Is it joyful? Is it an easy pathway? Am I going to be interrupting the designers? All of these things are, we think about all of those things as we're scouting restaurants. And I think some of the best restaurants worldwide have some common threads, and that is comfort, lighting,
Mhm,
view.
mhm,
I love going to a restaurant in the middle of the day. I love an early reservation, maybe
mhm,
5 p.m., because you will get this natural light,
mhm,
and then you can see how the shadows shift on the plate. And a really well-designed restaurant, you will see if you come at 5 p.m. or you come at 8, you will see the shadows shift and the food still looks gorgeous. You still feel comfortable, you wanna stay there even longer. I love a restaurant that I don't wanna leave,
yeah.
and they basically have to drag me out of there. Chef
Yeah,
has
yeah, I
gone.
wanna bottle all of that. Every time that I've opened a place just before we, get ready to start having, staff and do dry runs and family dinners and what have you, I'll sit in at almost every seat in the restaurant and just look at the room from different angles and just take it into to just imagine what the room's gonna feel like full, what that guest is gonna see from that particular point of view. And another, one of the very first places we opened in New York, we bought the tabletops and we stapled to the tabletops a very thin coat of cushion for because these were the days when tablecloths were very
Yeah.
popular, not so much anymore. But just to give you that little softness of touch underneath the tablecloth. I just always now, anytime I go into a restaurant that does have tablecloths, I'm gonna feel for because if you don't, you'll have the hardness just below
Yeah,
the table. It's just a little nuance,
it's
but
a little nuance, it's a little subtlety. We wrote a story in Bon Appetit about why every bar should have hooks.
mm,
Every bar should have a hook under it, so I have a place to put my bag. It's
the
not on
back of
the
your bar
it's
stool,
not on the back
right?
of the bar stool, it's not on the counter, it's not at my feet, I don't have to kick it, and this little subtle shift is something that we think all restaurants should have.
Okay. So I found the article about color fascinating, in particular the color red, and it's used to trigger a primal response in marketing the food that we buy. And I'll read a quote, food associations trigger immediate reactions in our brains, something color psychologists and marketers tap into when creating products. This year's shade, for instance, answers our desire for comfort, end quote. So I'm feeling a little dark blue these days, which represents concern. Talk about color, Jamila, if you will, and please give me a shade that you feel expresses a little optimism. Bring me out of my
Oh,
dark blue.
oh, okay. Okay, I'll start by taking you out of your dark blue,
Thank
green.
you. Yeah.
I was talking about the whiz last night. I want to be seeing green. I wouldn't be caught dead red. Because if you are seeing green, that means you got mean bread from Wiz.
Wow. Okay.
I think green is such a gorgeous color for optimism and joy, verdancy. We talk about that in the color story. When you think about the spring of peas, the shape shifting of fava. Um, I think there's nothing more gorgeous than a split open pistachio, just a fig that's just coming into ripeness. It has a little bit of green, but color. I'm very interested in behavioral science and what are some of the things that make humans do what we do, eat what we eat. And red is a signal of ripeness. It is a signal of beauty. Think about that beautiful strawberry, that cherry, tomato in August, that perfect shade of red.
Mm,
That signals desire, and you want to move toward it. And then think about the contrast of a shade like brown, and you will hear people talk, oh, the food is all brown, or these are all shades of brown. But for the brain, brown triggers doneness. I love food that is the same color as I am. So
mm,
think about a piece of toast,
mhm,
a sprinkle of cinnamon, golden brown. And what that does when I talk about golden brown, like what is that signal of what you know about a croissant that is crispy and brown? That signals like different kinds of desire. And in this story, we really wanted to explore what it means when we're eating a certain color of food. We think of a white being a canvas and the ways that food can show up more beautiful. The artist told us all about color, but they also told us about light. You know, pushing light towards food that's a reflection of the canvas, the plate being the canvas, that white tablecloth being a canvas, and doesn't necessarily mean that the food needs to be white, but it needs to have a place of light coming you. And I think those are very, very interesting things to think about. So even in our own homes, in our home cooking, do our plates have enough light? I love putting food on just white plates.
mhm.
All of my Le Creuset are all white because I really wanna put my emphasis on what's going inside of having that deep brown stew,
Yeah.
or having peas that have been pulverized so that I can, so they can be a smear as another piece of canvas, and then that, like, beautiful tomato across it. It just signals desire and makes us crave all of the things that we want to eat, and even your dark blues are, you can't have rhythm without the blues, um but the blues, those are your blueberries.
Mhm.
Those are your blueberries, your blackberries, all of the things that make life sweet, that if when we put those together on a plate, they become beauty. And then when you add green, you add verdancy, you're adding light, you're adding texture. And I think when we think about all of those things, putting those things together, what our brain says about food, we don't always think about all of those textures in this very nuanced way, but we are doing that every time we sprinkle a little parsley over the top of our macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, so many things that you touched on there. Thank you. And I was just talking to a friend of mine a couple of nights ago, and I asked him how spring was looking in New York. He's in New York City, and he's got a great view of Central Park. And he talked about the green leaves that are starting to sprout on the trees. And as soon as you mentioned green, my head went right to New England. I love the
Mhm.
Cape and green blades of green beach grass that went, just right away. And So thank you for that. And I think about my dear friend, my co-host, Ambassador Shabazz, whose dad, Malcolm X, would sprinkle cinnamon on his
Mhm.
vanilla ice cream. She talks about that quite a bit. So thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about Marcus Samuelson. There's a
Ugh,
great piece that you did on Marcus and some beautiful pictures, some beautiful photographs. He opened up a restaurant, and for him, a real homecoming called Marcus Hadith, which stands for fresh or modern,
mhm.
and the country of his birthplace. And given his journey, which is epic, it's really kind of a full circle moment. I've talked to Marcus since then, and we talked about what that process was like for him. And the restaurant sits atop the tallest building in East Africa. It's 41 stories. And he told me about how folks that came there from his village were, some of them were on an elevator for the very
For the
first time.
first this is a really beautiful story from our senior writer, Pervez Shalwani. Marcus Samuelson is an inspiration. He has been around for a very long time. He's an elder. I joked with him about being an elder in the industry now, but such an inspiration. And when we think about Marcus Samuelson and the coming through of the Soul of a New Cuisine, his second book, and what he was really trying to develop 25 years ago, but to come full circle and to see the legacy that he is creating. I think this is I've read a lot of stories about Marcus Samuelson, and I really believe this one gets to the real heart, scope, and sensibility of who he is now and who he has become as someone who was torn away from his homeland, but raised in a new homeland with a lovely adoptive parents, but still, and then marrying someone who is from his homeland who
Right.
helped him find other parts of his identity. That's one phase of Marcus Samuelson. But then out, okay, once you understand and you are now closer to yourself, how do you cement that in in the canon of restaurants? And for him to go back to Ethiopia, create this restaurant that is allowing of at that to cook Ethiopian food at the highest level, that is expressing local ingredients and creating this new pathway for Ethiopian culinary students who would typically move to Europe or parts of Africa, Dubai, for their culinary expression, their culinary epiphany. They can do that in their own homes and then choose how they want to create their careers. So he's working with a culinary school there. And so now think about Ethiopian food, him wanting to go back to have these touches of Ethiopian food and then creating that at the highest heights
Mm.
from not only a culinary perspective, from an architectural
Sure.
perspective.
Physically, right. It's
So, the Marcus Samuelson profile and the reason it's in the art and design issue is really it is a story about architecture and
mhm.
literally architecting your legacy and how you carry that forward. The spices that Marcus Samuelson uses, some of the dishes show up in all of his restaurants now as he has cemented his legacy and created an entirely new, um cohort is the wrong word, but he has created a new generation of chefs cooking food that expresses identity in the ways that they choose.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really beautiful way for us to think about what are the chefs in the future. He was trained in the French Brigade, um, cooked Swedish food, cooked all over the world. But now he has been able to take all parts of that and make something new. And again, that is us that it's like a jam session with music. It is like our art and design issue. We are taking all of these things from the different ways that we have evolved as humans and creating something new. That creates progress. It creates sustainability, and I think this um, profile about Marcus really shows him in his latest light. And I'm really looking forward to what the next generation is going to learn from Marcus Samuelson.
Yeah, I agree. I want to give the photographer who took these amazing photographs some props. Aaron Simina, the photos from this particular article are just amazing. And I read a quote of yours, Jamila, from Forbes magazine, and you said, "quote For me, food is an art form that intersects with every part of life and connects communities. This role is an exciting new chapter in my commitment to building a longer table and showing the world that food culture is for everyone. Relative to this idea of a longer table, what does Marcus's opening this restaurant at this time say about how the culinary world should look at Africa?
Oh my gosh. Africa is such a great question. Thank you. And it's always interesting to hear your quotes played back to you and then seeing them play out in real time.
Yeah.
When we think about a longer table and what the culinary world of how the culinary world is looking to Africa, I'm going to use another music reference. About 50% of West Africa and the global South writ large, but about 50% is under the age of 25. They're very young and they are driving music. And if you look at the rise of Afro beats and the rise of music from West Africa, if you just follow that pathway, the fashion comes right after
Mhm.
that. The music comes first, the fashion comes next, and then you have these shifts in other forms of culture, including the food. The people who are going or listening to that music are also eating certain kinds of food, and that starts to migrate as well. So I think if you are going to see, there's so much attention on West African food all over the world. You're looking at food that's coming out of Morocco, food that's coming out of Egypt, food that's coming out of Lagos, food that's coming out of Senegal. Some of the most important chefs who are in the emerging category of chefs, they are all in West Africa. What's so great about what's changing is that those chefs don't necessarily have to cook classically French food,
Mhm.
classically Italian, or vaguely Japanese. Those folks are now cooking the food of their culture, their background, their upbringing, the local ingredients of Senegal, of Lagos, of Morocco, and they are creating tasting menus. You're going to see a huge rise of West African chefs. I'm going to shout out a couple of names at you. Michael Olagbade, who's a Nigerian chef who cooks in New York, who has been developing tasting menus, has come out of some of the best kitchens on the planet. People like Gregory Gourdet, who
Mhm.
was a Bon Appetit Best New restaurant in 2023.
Khan,
His
correct?
restaurant Khan in Haiti
Mhm.
has a new restaurant called Maison Passerelle.
Mm.
And he's taking the history of the colonized parts of West Africa and
Wow.
Haiti and putting that on a plate. You're going to start to see restaurants like a Coco and a Koi that are in London that are cooking West African ingredients, maybe cooked with French techniques or Korean techniques. They're using West African ingredients. You're going to see the rise of fonio as a grain.
Mhm.
There is so much that is coming out of Africa from the northern parts of Africa that are closer to the Mediterranean, to the southern tips. You're going to be seeing a huge culinary scene in South Africa. Um, I think there's so much attention that is turning to the continent, but from within.
Mhm.
Uganda, as vanilla prices go up, you're going to see Uganda really rising as the next best place for vanilla.
Mm.
Beautiful long vanilla beans because
Mm.
tariffs are going to make some of our vanilla from Madagascar more expensive. Well, then we have to start looking at other places to get those flavors. I think for us, a lot of my colleagues who are Academy chairs for the world's 50 best restaurants are all talking about the talent that is in different countries in Africa. I think you're going to see a lot of attention over the next couple of years.
Wow, what great information that is. This takes me back just a bit to a muse of Marcus's and a mentor of mine, a woman named Alberta Wright, who opened up a place called Jezebel in 1983 in New York, featuring her South Carolina version of Southern food. And Alberta was the first person that I knew of to start taking trips to Ghana
Yes.
and bringing back art and putting art around her restaurant. And I know that she's inspired Marcus through the years. I mean,
Yes.
she was dear to both of us. But this just seeing the rise of Africa. I remember having Fab Five Freddy on the podcast when we first started, and he talked me through Afro beats that he was listening to. And of course, if you're going to follow anybody's lead musically, it might be Fab
Absolutely.
Five.
Gotta be
So, but that's just really, really exciting, Jamila, to hear about how things are opening up and this table is getting longer, as you
absolutely.
use that metaphor.
Well, I think we are also I think there's going to be, I think one of the things we're seeing through some common threads with chefs is, a bit of a homecoming, respect for local ingredients, but also respect for cultural backgrounds. If you go back to restaurants like Noma in Copenhagen,
Mhm.
Rene Redzepi is not Danish. His family immigrated to Denmark, and but he only wanted to cook things that were around him. And what's so interesting about that restaurant is that it gave a lot of restaurants permission to no longer cook food that they were no longer flying in fish from Japan,
Mhm.
getting caviar from Russia and France. They weren't getting foie, from Canada. They were just cooking that was hyper local. And that attention of and it started to raise the question about what is luxury. And wait a minute, so if I can't get caviar from Russia, where am I getting it from? And then it starts to raise the question, okay, you get it from a farm. So, well, what is luxury? Well, they started looking at ingredients in places like Brazil. So you have like very Brazilian restaurants looking at the honey that comes from bees that can only survive in that part of the region. So that becomes the most luxurious ingredient. So we're seeing that with African as well. We are going to cook Ghanaian ingredients and buy things and make food that's only grown in Ghana. And that becomes a luxury experience and makes that restaurant a destination. There is a real shift in the mindset of what is luxury, what makes a good city restaurant. If you think about a restaurant like Tatiana,
Mhm.
a lot of people call Chef Kwame Awashi a game changer because he's cooking oxtails
Mhm.
and piri piri salad.
Mhm.
But I would argue that Kwame is actually playing the same game. He's cooking the food of his childhood the same way
Mhm.
when an Italian chef gives you um, beautiful little folia because that's how his grandmother made pasta. Well, Kwame is just giving you cosmic brownies because he ate those in the Bronx. Um, so, and then that becomes a movement. So now there are
Yeah.
all of these restaurants all over the country that are now making cosmic brownies.
Right.
And they start a trend. But when you come back to yourself, you come back home and you start creating the dishes that are most familiar, that you find the most enchanting, the thing that you love the most, you will find that those are things that you want to share with people. And I would argue that every chef on the planet, wherever she's from, is cooking the food that is most inspiring to them. And the trends come outward from there. And those make the best restaurants. But they are cooking the things that are familiar, that are exciting, closest to themselves. And then we all find that we want more of it.
I could talk to you about that for an hour in and of itself, but I know we have a little bit of a time concern here, so
No, no, we're good. We're
I
good.
am gonna move on. But man, you took me around the world and then brought me right back to the Bronx and Chef Kwame. That was a nice journey. But on that note, we're gonna talk a little bit about Marfa and what I found really unique, and again, this is just so typical of how this issue resonated with me, was that every piece was not just like your, ABCs of here's an interesting thing, here's why we think but the idea that the radio station that you should listen to while driving into Marfa to really get the vibe of this really unique place, I just thought was just such a cool nuance, Jamila. So talk a little bit about that.
I love this story about Marfa, Texas. It's one of those places that you hear if you love art, if you're interested in art or have friends who are artists or inspired by art, everybody talks about Marfa, Texas as this bucket list place. There's a Prada installation. There were all it's this great architectural institutions, but you've got to drive there. And it's one of those places like, oh, I'm in Austin or I'm in Texas. I want to go to Marfa. And then you see that it's this 6-hour drive to get there. And then you need a friend with like a helicopter or a plane. It's like, no, I'm not going to drive there, which is why we need this
Yeah.
detail, because you are going to be in your car to
You'll
be
be there for a
prepared to
while.
get
Yeah.
there. And when you get there, okay, we're going to show you the restaurants that you can go to. But in particular, we wanted to go bar hopping through Marfa, Texas. And so we called it a boot and scootin', root and tootin', root and tootin', skip through hop, because there are cowgirls and blue-haired ladies and Prada installations, and that there is this quirky place, but we wanted to show that art can be anywhere, but the food is always there too.
Mhm.
If you're going to take this hours-long journey to get to this very special refuge for artists, an inspirational place for artists, at some point, you're going to have to feed yourself. So
Mhm.
we want to, one, show you how to do that and how to experience the art and the food and the drinks and the culture. All of these are cultural moments. Eating food is a cultural experience. Looking at art is a cultural experience, but they don't exist separately. You can't,
Mhm.
okay, I'm going to go to the museum and I'm never going to eat this week. No, you have to, it's the art. You go to the museum and then you go to the cafe. You go
Mhm.
to a concert and then you get your chicken tenders. You go for sports and you get a beer and snacks. These things, so we always want to show, when we're taking people to a destination, we want to show you not only how to experience the food, but how to experience the culture, right down to the radio station.
I'm sure that I probably overuse this quote, but, for me in hospitality, it's just so applicable. But Maya Angelou's quote about people won't remember what you said, what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel.
You will remember
And
how
I
they
got
made you feel.
feeling from this issue. That's what really resonated with me. It wasn't just getting information and, oh, that sounds cool. Maybe I'll check that out. But I really felt like, you know,
Oh,
I felt something
that
from
is
it.
the highest compliment. It is the highest compliment. I think that it's such a high compliment because we all need to feel something.
Mhm.
Because if Bon Appetit is a place where you pick up the magazine and you feel connected to it and you feel inspired, so inspired, you're going to make a recipe, you're going to take a trip, you're going to take note of the chef, you're going to buy someone a gift card to
Mhm.
one of the restaurants on our best new restaurants list. That means that we have not only inspired you, but also helped you participate in another part of culture. We have created a cultural moment for you. And I think that's what we are trying to do with every single issue, is to not only give you nuance, but give you something to do as well. This is going to be delicious at the very end. Our test kitchen editors, our Bite at the Museum feature, we wanted to inspire the show you where the art begins, where the recipe, because where you don't know where the art begins and the recipe ends, but it's also, oh, wait a minute, we this is something that we can actually taste. The food, the dishes
Mhm.
are delicious, but it is also showing you how they can also be another piece of art, and it's another art form. That circular constantly, then it kind of shows that we are all sitting on a constellation of content where every star is important, and if we feel something, then we're more likely to share it.
A constellation of content. Wow. I feel like Elvis Mitchell. I want to kind of grab your quotes, like, and do something with them, but Elvis does that. So
My mother said I probably should have been a therapist or philosopher.
I feel like I'm having a session. Let's have a cocktail. Why don't we? So there's a recipe in the issue from a relatively unsung early hero of cocktail culture, a guy named Thomas Bullock. So I first became aware of Thomas Bullock through Alice Randall and a piece that we did for Oxford American. Did a little piece for them, and then we had Alice on the podcast. And in her 2020 novel Black Bottom Saint, she talks about this fantastic bar book, this barman that I had never heard of after 40 years in the industry. And the cocktail issue, your the featured cocktail in your issue is the Busy Izzy Highball. So I'm going to put this over to you. If you were hosting a dinner party and
Mm.
serving Thomas Bullock's cocktail, the Busy Izzy Highball from the Ideal
Mm.
Bartender, what might we hear on that playlist?
oh my gosh, you're going to hear a lot of jazz on that playlist. Well, I'm from Detroit, so of course you're going to hear a lot of Motown, but you're also going to hear a lot of jazz. You might hear a lot of contemporary jazz. It has a little more R&B in it with a little bit of hip hop. A lot. I love instrument. I love hip hop when it's instrumental.
Hmm.
That it's taking all the words out, so you can just really focus on the orchestration. I'm very interested in classical music that is shown in contemporary settings. So I think you're going to hear a huge playlist that's going to run the entire, all of the genre, the things that are going to make you stop, make you turn up, maybe a little bit of Broadway as well. You'll probably hear that Quincy Jones, um, Emerald City sequence. I want to be seeing green.
Wow. Wow. Jamila Robinson, you are an absolute delight. This
Oh,
issue
thank you.
is just fantastic. I just have to recommend this highly. I think you and the team there have done such an amazing job of bringing
Thank
these
you.
stories. Just as I said, they make you feel something. So you took some time to talk with us at Corner Table Talk. I'm so appreciative. It's nice to see you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It has been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Cheers.
So here I am with my dear sister, Ambassador Shabazz, with How We Move. It's been a minute. It's been a minute, Ambassador. What's going
A
on?
lot of stuff keeps me busy. Well, first of all, what charges me is listening to or hearing about people such as your most recent guest, Jamila Robinson. Fantastic. And
Yeah.
it's fantastic. It thrills me. It affirms how I move, the way I've navigated most of my life, just really being inspired by and moving in the direction of that inspiration, charting courses and listening to her curiosity and following it. And also the one thing that was interesting is just the culinary. She spoke about the behavioral components to the surroundings, the aesthetics, the psychology of such atmospheres, which is key. It's like going into your grandmother's house. No matter what it looks like, love is in there.
Right, right.
It's interesting. Guy Davis, who's the son of Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis,
Hmm.
in our childhood, he was like the only vegan we'd ever met. I mean, there are people that knew the importance of vegetarians, except for Thanksgiving. Because when he went to his grandmother's house,
He had that turkey. Ham, too. He went all the way
treated
live.
himself to the love that went into it. I mean, so people
Yeah.
underestimate the significance of that. Another person is like Danny Glover, and we all know he's like 6'4". He would go down to his grandmother's house, which is far away from the Atlanta airport, and he'd crawl up on that little sofa couch meant for 2 seats, and that's where he would rest, but to eat her food, that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So atmospheres, we often think it has to be, expensive or, tricked out in all the kinds of modern aesthetics, but it really is the emotional environment.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's exciting to me too, Ambassador, is to have someone like Jamila in that position. I mean, of course, Dawn Davis preceded her, and we also had Dawn on the show. It was fantastic. Jamila brings another kind of sensibility, though, to her approach. And I know you felt that. I mean, I listened to you guys talk off camera, and you had your own language going on about astrology, but the cultural awareness,
Yeah.
to have somebody in that position as an editor in chief of a major publication like that, it just kind of makes it a different conversation.
Cultural curiosity, because
Mhm.
this is someone who doesn't mind learning something on the way. You bring your intellect and your travels with you, but you're open to all the new things that unfold. And that's why I loved listening to the two of you and why our conversation off camera went so long, because I need to hear things like that in my life. It just really is much more affirming, and it enables me to know these waters I chart these courses I chart are not for naught.
That's right.
Here, young
That's right.
people like herself really feel the freedom to journey in ways that are not usually chronicled.
Yeah. Her curiosity too, when obviously she wanted to talk to you specifically about Belize and, the untapped, I've been on that tour with you a few times, so I know some of the stops along the way, but most people just have no idea of the diversity there. And Jamila was well aware. And I think you've got an interested patron in Jamila.
Well, and for me, whether I'm in Belize or any other country, there's the list of things that are published, that tourism industries will reference, and then it's the nuance. I like the nuances. Right? That really does make for the trip, the journey, the discoveries, the uncovered experiences that take you back to your home. So part of what I do is, what part of this, while the accent may be different and the preparation of the food may be different, the seed is the seed is the seed is the seed. And where does it take you in terms of your own child
Yeah.
and things like that?
Yeah.
And now we're doing it where the things that grow from the ground are part of the culinary experience, but the wellness experience. How do you
Right.
heal? And so
Right.
combining all of that, because so many people that are citizens of said grounds, they do it naturally, instinctively, but they don't realize there's a whole industry
We,
from the
yeah, and obviously, we tend to steer clear of politics here. That's not really part of our scope. But, I will say that one of the things that has come out of Mr. Kennedy, who's been speaking about food issues, is some of the stuff that we consume, particularly our cereal and what have you. But, I'm getting inquiries from different beverage companies that are using various roots and natural remedies in drinks and eliminating sugar and putting good things in. And you just say, how hard is that to do, right? To substitute the bad with the good.
Well, I think accessibility, right?
Mhm.
Information and accessibility, and then the balance thereof. Because, you can have, for instance, when I have inflammation in my joints, I love a good salad. And I don't mind a tomato, but tomatoes aggravate it, even though it's a good food. When if I'm thinking about a menu that you're going to eat, I know that we don't need tomatoes because you don't.
Or beets. No beets, no tomatoes.
But I love them both. So it's learning
Yeah.
enough about your body, the food allergies as well as food sensitivities, so that you can do things
Right.
in moderation. And I think some people take for granted that which grows in the yard or that which you buy in abundance, but not knowing the language, what role it plays. I'm doing that for a number of friends right now in Belize, bringing in, making shots, little shot drinks, so that they can acquire a taste and add it to their teas or their juices. And then we do a 30 to 60-day assessment. Do you feel any better? Even if it's a placebo, because the placebo is taking charge
Right.
and not having to depend singularly on.
Right. I recently saw something where they took 15 or 20 Africans who grew up on that type of diet, started feeding them the American diet, and did the same thing with 15 to 20 Americans and put them on an African diet. And you can imagine the health scale went off the charts, unhealthy for the Africans eating American and healthy for the Americans eating the African diet.
Well, you know that by virtue of global travel and those that start here going to school or move here to work, and within a generation, their body systems are more like ours, not in a good way.
Right.
But people are learning it now, and I'm trying to do more and more of it. And I'm happy because I actually grew up. I veer off. I have my binges on things that I enjoy, but I know exactly what it is or what I need to do. What I'm short on is the break, the pause.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know what I don't need to have in my body. And so it's learning enough to resist things that are not good for you and save it for Sunday.
Not Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, Ambassador, we've missed you. for sure. I know even when you're underground, you're busy. You don't stop. Anything coming up for you that you want to share with us, Al?
Yes, there's a lot going on. There's always a lot going on, and I've been fully immersed in school systems, watching how they operate. My interest, one of the interests I have, and we approach my dad's 100th birthday, is 100% matriculation rates. I don't want to hear any more percentages of how many more young people we got to graduate from high school. We need all 17, 18-year-olds that are supposed to graduate. We want all of them to have alma maters, and we want them to at least have their high school diploma. So, my father has a quote, education is the passport to the future. It belongs to those who prepare for it today. So I am eagerly and persistently moving around from school regions, academic spaces, ministries of education, departments of education, superintendents, to really request that their principals per school make sure that alumni get back involved, teachers are inspired to do more, that parents are supported to assure that we need to get all young people. So in honor of his 100th birthday, it's 100%. We always did as a family. Everything was 100%. You didn't have to do anything. Otherwise, we'd have to answer not to my mother.
To mom. Dr. Betty don't play. And I also want to thank you. As you know, I'm the co-chair of Operation Hope's Restore Hope LA. We're helping the victims of wildfires out there, and I want to thank you for becoming a member of our committee. It's a 5-year plan to rebuild and help. And in particular, we've got a special project with the Rosebud Academy, which is a charter school K through 8 rather. Whose school burned down, and we're going to be working on trying to get them a new home. So I want to thank you personally for joining in that effort.
Those are the things that are essential, and the little bit that we can all participate in, and that's how I'm approaching this. We get really distracted by headlines and mercurial takeaways and things that are happening to many people who are impacted, and then we forget the assets we sit upon.
That's right.
And so just dust things off, reclaim them, and activate.
Well, guess what? That's how we move.
That's how we.
Ambassador Shabazz, it's lovely to see you always.
You too, my dear brother.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.